This is Chia Teck Leng, born in 1959, a native Singaporean who grew up in an ordinary family. However, beneath that simple appearance lay an extraordinary intellect. From a young age, he demonstrated exceptional intelligence, particularly sharp with numbers. In the eyes of his family and neighbors, young Chia Teck Leng was not only quick, but also so clever that few could match him. After graduating from secondary school, Chia Teck Leng was accepted into Victoria School in Singapore with outstanding results. With his sharp mind and passion for numbers, Chia Teck Leng decided to pursue a degree in accounting at the National University of Singapore, NUS, the country's top university and consistently ranked among the best in the world. As a student, Chia Teck Leng was considered the ideal model child, both well-behaved and hard-working, as well as exceptionally intelligent. His academic record was a series of impressive achievements, earning admiration from both teachers and classmates. After graduating from NUS, Chia Teck Leng began his career at the prestigious auditing firm Arthur Andersen, one of the leading international companies of that time. Chia Teck Leng worked in a professional environment with the best conditions, which not only helped him hone his professional skills, but also made him more mature and composed. At work, Chia Teck Leng stood out for his dedication and sense of responsibility. The projects he handled always achieved excellent results. However, with an unrelenting ambition to rise higher, Chia Teck Leng still felt unsatisfied with his current achievements. He continually sought new opportunities and changed jobs frequently. His income quickly skyrocketed, and the positions he held became increasingly senior, from chief financial officer to deputy general manager of HVB Bank Singapore. With a monthly salary of nearly $1,460 USD, Chia Teck Leng was among the rare high-income earners in Singapore at that time. However, he maintained a simple lifestyle, not extravagant, and never indulged in any bad habits. In the eyes of his colleagues and society, Chia Teck Leng was not only a successful businessman, but also a calm, grounded individual who lived a healthy life filled with love for his family. Chia Teck Leng had a gentle wife who worked as a teacher and 2 sons. Their whole family lived in a modest apartment in Tanjong Rhu. Whenever he wasn't traveling for work, Chia Teck Leng always prioritized spending time with his wife and children. He was also very filial to both sets of parents, always showing care and attention to them. Friends and colleagues around him often teased his wife, saying, "Where did you find such a precious husband?" But who could have imagined a person as outstanding and perfect as Chia Teck Leng had a dark side that few knew about? In 1994, during a chance visit to the casino ship of Star Cruises, Chia Teck Leng was captivated by the atmosphere there. The tourists crowding around the tables, the excited faces when winning, and the bitter ones when losing made his blood boil. Known for his sharpness with numbers from a young age, Chia Teck Leng was confident that he could master this game. Like many gamblers starting out, he thought he would only play small to add some excitement to his otherwise dull life, believing there was nothing dangerous about it. And so Chia Teck Leng sat down at the gambling table. At first, he strictly followed the philosophy of playing small for fun, betting around 146 USD per game. Perhaps it was beginner's luck, or maybe Chia Teck Leng truly hit a fortunate streak as he won multiple games in a row. These initial victories gave him an exhilarating thrill. From then on, Chia Teck Leng often took advantage of his business trips to visit casinos and play a few games. As with any gambler, the number of losses Chia Teck Leng experienced always outweighed his wins. And if you've ever played cards or mahjong, you'll understand that the more you lose, the more you want to win it back. This mentality led to a growing passion for gambling within Chia Teck Leng from 1995 to 1996. He became a regular visitor at the casinos, constantly coming and going. Eventually, Chia Teck Leng lost all of his savings from many years. Worse still, gambling plunged him into debt, with his credit card balance reaching a negative 73,000 USD. But instead of stopping, he believed that just one more game could win it all back. Then luck unexpectedly smiled on him, and in 1997 Chia Teck Leng won 730,000 USD. The casinos considered him a VIP, and they even gave him a considerable credit line, which filled Chia Teck Leng with confidence. From then on, he became more reckless, raising his bets to as much as 29,200 USD per game. No longer satisfied with just gambling on cruise ships, Chia Teck Leng began visiting luxurious casinos in Malaysia, Australia, the Philippines, and even the UK. Finally, during a game in August 1998, he lost 1 million Singapore dollars. Not only did he lose all the profits he had previously gained, but he also fell into massive debt. Just when it seemed like he had hit rock bottom from gambling losses, Chia Teck Leng's career took an unexpected turn. On January 20, 1999, he was appointed as the Chief Financial Officer of Heineken Asia Pacific, with an annual salary of up to 219,000 USD. In theory, with such a high salary at Heineken Asia Pacific, if Chia Teck Leng focused on his work for a few years, paying off his debts wouldn't have been too big of a challenge. He had a real chance to start over and return to a stable, secure path. But the excitement from winning and losing tens, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars at the gambling table had trapped Chia Teck Leng. He believed that since he had won big before, he could recreate that success again. A bold and crazy plan gradually took shape in Chia Teck Leng's mind. Just 5 days after taking office as Chief Financial Officer at Heineken Asia Pacific, he began plotting how to embezzle money from the company. Chia Teck Leng's plan was sophisticated. He decided to borrow money from banks, but under the name of Heineken Asia Pacific. This was a major player in the beer industry, with the globally renowned Tiger Beer brand, a company that any bank would want to partner with. First, Chia Teck Leng targeted SEB Bank of Sweden, a bank headquartered in Europe. To kick off his fraud scheme, he had to overcome 2 challenges. The first was forging documents, which was not difficult for someone as financially knowledgeable as Chia Teck Leng. The second challenge was much more difficult. He needed the signatures of the board of directors. To accomplish this, Chia Teck Leng found these signatures from company documents and began practicing forging signatures. When he believed the signatures could deceive others, Chia Teck Leng took the documents to the bank and opened an account under the name Heineken Asia Pacific. In addition, to easily manipulate the flow of funds, Chia Teck Leng forged a decision from the board of directors, making himself the sole signatory and account manager of the company's bank account. With seemingly legitimate procedures and the strong reputation of Heineken Asia Pacific, the bank did not thoroughly verify the signatures or authorizations. Thus, the account was opened effortlessly, and the bank quickly approved the first loan. This money was swiftly transferred by Chia Teck Leng into his personal account and then forwarded to major casinos. With a large financial resource from the bank, he quickly transitioned from being deeply in debt to becoming a millionaire with assets totaling tens of millions of dollars. At the same time, 3 more major banks actively approached Chia Teck Leng, offering to collaborate. These were banks that had long sought to establish a relationship with Heineken Asia Pacific. These banks were Sakura Bank of Japan, Fuji Bank of Japan, and Deutsche Bank of Germany. Seeing the opportunity in front of him, Chia Teck Leng continued to repeat his old trick, skillfully using forged documents and signatures to defraud all three banks and cleverly make himself the sole controller of the account. From that moment, money continuously flowed into his pockets. Whenever he needed more funds, he simply created a new loan application. In just November 1999 alone, Chia Teck Leng embezzled $38,690,000 USD from the banks. With this immense financial power, he began placing bolder bets. Wagering tens of thousands of dollars in a single game became normal. Casinos worldwide quickly saw Chia Teck Leng as a prime target. To entice him to gamble, they were willing to do anything to please this VIP guest. Private yachts, private planes picking him up from the airport, luxurious presidential suites in hotels, personal bodyguards, and even private chefs were provided. At this point, he resembled an emperor. Each gambling session was held in VIP rooms. His betting levels had reached unprecedented numbers. On one occasion, he placed a bet as high as $258,000 USD in a single game. To maintain the fraud without being detected by the banks, Chia Teck Leng applied a classic Ponzi scheme tactic, taking money from one place to cover another. Whenever a loan was due, he skillfully managed to repay both the principal and interest on time. Therefore, in the eyes of the four major banks, Chia Teck Leng was seen as a golden client, an elite customer with a perfect credit history. All of his loan requests were approved quickly and easily. And so, Chia Teck Leng continued his wild gambling spree despite his debts piling up day by day. By 2002, when financial pressure reached its peak, he decided to visit a casino on a cruise ship to try his luck. This time, somehow, he won every bet he made. In a short period, Chia Teck Leng easily won $73,000 USD. In his excitement, he thought to himself, "There must be some reason why I'm winning so strangely." In reality, many gamblers often harbor superstitions like this. After some thought, he concluded that his luck came from the female dealer that day. So he continued placing more bets. Sure enough, as long as she dealt the cards, he kept winning. That night, Chia Teck Leng easily won $730,000 USD, so he became certain that this female dealer was his goddess of luck. He then began investigating and found out that the dealer was a 22-year-old Chinese woman named Li Jin. In the following days, Chia Teck Leng always requested that Li Jin be the dealer whenever he gambled, and, strangely enough, every time she dealt, he kept winning big. It was as if Li Jin truly was his goddess of luck. However, with these results, the casinos became unhappy. Therefore, the casino management decided every time Chia Teck Leng came to play, Li Jin would be given the day off. Realizing the casino's attempts to block his luck, Chia Teck Leng decided to keep his goddess of luck, Li Jin, by his side at all costs. He began a frenzied pursuit, sparing no expense to win over the young woman. Chia Teck Leng bought Li Jin a luxurious Mercedes sports car and an apartment in an upscale residential area on Keng Chin Road, Singapore, valued at $386,900 USD at the time. He didn't stop there, showering her with expensive clothes, handbags, and jewelry. In total, Chia Teck Leng gifted Li Jin over $219,000 USD worth of presents. How could a young woman just 22 years old like Li Jin resist such temptations? Eventually, she became Chia Teck Leng's lover. To allow Li Jin to frequently visit Singapore, Chia Teck Leng even spent $7,300 USD to buy her a fake passport. Chia Teck Leng's lavish and extravagant life continued as if it would never end. However, what he did not expect was that someone had been silently watching his every move. On September 2, 2003, Singapore's Commercial Affairs Department received information and officially launched an investigation into Chia Teck Leng. As to why he came under scrutiny, some believe it was due to a secret informant, while others speculate that his suspicious banking transactions had finally been detected. Regardless of the reason, the result was the end of Chia Teck Leng's lavish days. Investigating whether he committed a crime turned out to be very simple. All it took was asking Heineken Asia Pacific for clarification. The investigation team acted quickly. Just 2 days later, the police arrested Chia Teck Leng and his lover, Li Jin. Initially, the police only uncovered that Chia Teck Leng had forged signatures and documents to defraud SEB Bank of Sweden for $290,000 USD. But upon deeper investigation, it was revealed that Chia Teck Leng had embezzled a total of $18,250,000 USD from SEB Bank, $7,300,000 USD from Sakura Bank, and $21,900,000 USD from HVB Bank of Germany. Over the span of 4 years, he successfully defrauded more than $73,000 USD from 4 banks. This was the largest commercial fraud case in Singapore's history at the time. On December 5, 2003, after a thorough investigation, the investigative team officially announced that Chia Teck Leng was facing at least 46 charges, most of which were related to forgery, fraud, and money laundering. If convicted, under Singapore's law at that time, Chia Teck Leng could face life imprisonment. However, in the face of serious charges from the prosecution, Chia Teck Leng made no defense. He voluntarily disclosed all his overseas bank accounts, which held a remaining balance of $25,404,000 USD. This money was immediately recovered. However, the majority of the remaining sum, totaling up to $60,079,000 USD, could not be traced. The police believed that at least $45,260,000 USD of this amount had been lost by Chia Teck Leng in casinos, while the rest had been squandered by him and Li Jin. After being arrested, perhaps to mitigate her own sentence, Li Jin quickly returned $876,000 USD to the authorities. However, Chia Teck Leng claimed that he had only given Li Jin about $200,000 USD, with the rest being her own money. Although returning more money could potentially reduce his sentence, Chia Teck Leng expressed a desire for the Singapore government to return the excess money to Jin, as he did not want to implicate an innocent person. On April 2, 2004, the largest commercial fraud case in Singapore's history was officially brought to trial in the Singapore High Court. The prosecution announced that of the 46 charges against Chia Teck Leng, they would focus on 14 key charges, including 6 counts of forgery and 8 counts of fraud. The remaining charges would be considered during sentencing. This case caused a major sensation in Singapore, but the trial itself was surprisingly simple. Chia Teck Leng did not offer any defense. He straightforwardly declared, "I plead guilty to all 14 charges." This took the prosecution by surprise, as they had thoroughly prepared for a fierce legal battle with the defense. Although the plea phase was simple and without disputes between the prosecution and defense, the sentencing phase was much more tense. The prosecution argued that Chia Teck Leng's crime was extremely serious and had caused significant damage to the national credit system. To deter and prevent others from copying this behavior, they recommended severe punishment and the highest sentence possible under the law. However, Chia Teck Leng's defense lawyer disagreed with this view and presented the following arguments. Firstly, although the amount Chia Teck Leng embezzled was substantial, he did not harm anyone's life or health. The victims in this case were only banks, not ordinary working people. Therefore, the consequences did not directly affect the majority of the public. Secondly, after being investigated, Chia Teck Leng demonstrated a high level of cooperation. He voluntarily pleaded guilty and provided all bank records and transaction histories without concealing any funds. Chia Teck Leng's voluntary confession greatly simplified the investigation and saved a significant amount of costs. Furthermore, he helped recover about 30% of the defrauded amount, reducing the damage significantly for the affected parties. These actions were seen as mitigating factors during the trial. Moreover, after defrauding such a large sum of money from the banks, Chia Teck Leng did not attempt to hide his assets or flee abroad, nor did he spend the money lavishly on his personal life. His sole purpose was to use his gambling skills to win back the lost money and make up for the financial shortfalls he had created. Over the years, he had genuinely tried to do so. Whenever he won money, he used it to repay debts. Unfortunately, as the saying goes, gambling is 9 parts losing, and for Chia Teck Leng, the debts not only remained unpaid, but continued to grow. In the end, Chia Teck Leng's character was not inherently bad. In the eyes of his colleagues and family, he was always considered a good leader, a caring father, a devoted husband, and a filial son who looked after those around him. Chia Teck Leng never harmed anyone, and for many years he actively participated in and contributed to charitable activities, helping the community. His 2 sons wrote letters to the court requesting leniency for their father. They emphasized that although their father had made a grave mistake, he had never acted wrongly towards his family or friends. He had always lived with compassion and love. They hoped the court would take these aspects into consideration and deliver a more lenient sentence, giving their father the chance to reunite with his family sooner. Finally, after carefully reviewing the defense's arguments, the court delivered the following verdict. All 14 charges against Chia Teck Leng were found guilty, with each charge carrying a 6-year prison sentence. However, 7 of these charges would be served concurrently, resulting in a total sentence of 42 years in prison. This was also the longest prison sentence ever given in a commercial fraud case in Singapore's history. If Chia Teck Leng demonstrated good behavior during his imprisonment, he would be eligible for a reduction of up to 1/3 of the total sentence. This meant that with good behavior, Chia Teck Leng could serve only 28 years before being released. As for Li Jin, although she did not directly participate in Chia Teck Leng's fraudulent activities and had actively returned the money she received from their relationship, she still faced legal consequences for using a fake passport. She had entered Singapore twice using the fake passport that Chia Teck Leng had purchased for her, and this act resulted in a 6-month prison sentence. Supreme Court Judge Tay Yong Kwang once remarked that Chia Teck Leng was a criminal genius. For 4 years, he skillfully manipulated 4 banks without being detected, to the point that these banks even considered him one of their most valued clients. Chia Teck Leng indeed led a highly successful double life for a long time. On the outside, he was a billionaire, a super VIP at major casinos. With just one phone call, he could have a private jet, a private yacht, a presidential suite, and countless beautiful women around him. But at home, he transformed into a serious, upright, middle-aged man. His parents, wife, and 2 sons never suspected anything, not even when he was arrested. Even then, his family couldn't believe it and thought the police had made a mistake. His colleagues and supervisors at the company also respected and trusted him. When the verdict was handed down, they still could not imagine that the hard-working, serious, middle-aged man was the same gambler who spent money like water in the casinos. It can only be said that Chia Teck Leng was truly brilliant at disguising himself, fooling everyone around him. So the question remains, in the largest commercial fraud case in Singapore's history, who were the victims? After the case was exposed, the four banks sued Heineken Asia Pacific, demanding compensation for their losses, claiming that Chia Teck Leng was an employee of the company. However, the court outright rejected this request. The reason given by the judge was, this was the fault of the banks themselves. They had failed to rigorously verify the signatures and authenticity of the documents at the time, leading to their losses, and that was the consequence of their negligence. No one else was to blame. Notably, later on, when Singapore debated whether to establish legal casinos, Chia Teck Leng, who was then imprisoned in Changi Prison, wrote a 13-page essay titled Taming the Casino Dragon. In the essay, he recounted his experiences in gambling, the gradual descent into addiction, and his views on the government's establishment of legal casinos, including how they should operate and what safeguards should be in place. He stated that this essay was not only an expression of remorse for his own crimes, but also a warning to others, reminding them never to follow in his footsteps. The story of Chia Teck Leng has come to an end, and we likely all feel a mix of emotions. A man who was once a brilliant talent with great potential ended up destroying his own life. In his tragedy, we see the fragility of human beings in the face of temptation and the terrifying nature of greed. It is a serious reminder for all of us about the choices we make in life and the price we pay when we lose ourselves in the whirlpool of illusions and uncertainty.